Welcome to the World United. Welcome to the World United.
The bio for Uncle John is John Goody Kelly is an Aboriginal Australian artist whose art depicts stories from his home and people, the Dunghutti Nation, Kempsey, North Coast, New South Wales. With every brushstroke, John Kelly imparts his own special brand of cultural knowledge. When Goody talks, you instantly know that art and culture are two things he feels very passionately about. In fact, to Goody, there are one people. He says, a quote from him says, "My father's greatest words to me were, be my own mentor, not my own tormentor." Great words from your father, wise man. "My father told me to paint my surrealism, to paint what was in my mind." He says, "I never draw anything beforehand. I visualize it, then I approach the canvas and just attack it." Through his art, Goody has been able to express his passion and love for his culture and traditions in a way that has brought him personal satisfaction as well as success and recognition. Welcome, Uncle John.
Come down here for a spell. We're going to tell you some stories. Come down to where we live and I'll show you around. We're the Dunghutti people, and this valley is our home. The mountains, the river, the sea, it's all part of us, connecting us to it and each other. We were born from this land and sustained by this river. It forms who we are. And as the river is our lifeblood, this mountain might be our heart. When we see it looking over us, we know we are where we belong. The Macleay River winds its way down the valley, joining our communities through Bellbrook, Greenhill, Kempsey, Taruka, Burnbridge, and meets the sea at Southwest Rocks. We lived here for a long time, and now it's time for we elders to pass on our knowledge of this land and our history here to a new generation.
Awesome. So, Uncle John, would you like to share a few words about anything that's been going on this morning? Share with us what's in your heart.
Well, good morning. As my father told me, be your own mentor, not your own tormentor. Sometimes I torment myself for the things that go around me, but there's things I can't do. I've got to believe in my spirituality to make things come true. My name is Guri Mudjai. My totem is the porcupine. So blackfella with a lot of points, I call myself. And I'm a Dunghutti man. My father was a Dunghutti man. His father and so on was a Dunghutti man. I've been part of Back to Country now for 10 years. I've known Uncle Max probably 11 years. So a lot of my teaching from Uncle Max is passed on from my grandfather. My father being the first Aboriginal person to ever work for National Parks and Wildlife. He started in 1972 when there was no significance of Aboriginal people. They wanted to know if there was any significance of Aboriginal people still knowing their knowledge and their culture in the area around New South Wales. So my father was employed to go on to National Parks and Wildlife and be a research officer. Now, he recorded the mountain, what we've seen in the background. That was one of the first sites to be recorded in New South Wales, Barra-Bulli, Mount Anderson Sugarloaf Mountain. Now, it's 35 miles from Kempsey going up into the hinterland of Belbrook, where our homeland is, where our Kelly family came from. The grandfather there was, he was selling and growing turf back in the early 1800s. So he was a worker, but he was practicing his culture as well. When he didn't have his day-to-day clothing on, he had his lap on. And he had caring for country, caring for family, caring for community, but most of all, caring for spirituality. So it lived on through the generation, from one generation to the next generation. Now, we here in Kempsey, we have a midden site at Clybucca. It is 22 metres wide, it is 8 metres deep, and it runs for 16 kilometres long. You did hear me right, 16 kilometres long, one pile of shells. Now, my grandfather used to tell me that if it took 10,000 years to eat 1 kilometre, that makes that midden site anywhere between 165,000 years old to 200,000 years old. So we protect that today. We protect all sacred sites. Sacred sites to us are very important for us to believe in our dreaming and our stories to be carried on through art, painting, storytelling, and sharing. Now, I work in a little preschool with Aboriginal children and non-Aboriginal children called Gallagher. And it's been operating now for 56 years. It was the first Aboriginal centre set up in New South Wales to look after Aboriginal children and do education and get the children used to mingling, not muddling, not meddling, but mingling. Mingling's better. And through the teaching I've taken on through Back to Country and the men and women that we brought through Back to Country over the period of the last 10 years, we have grown men into men. So they learn about the Mother Earth, Grandfather Sun, Grandmother Moon. And we start each day with the first day for the rest of my life. And we still do that on our own countries when we do leave ceremony. So it's important to carry on all this stuff, all this heritage stuff. And, you know, with Uncle Max's teachings, we've been able to do that. We've been able to do things like Gurruville the whale, sing the whale song up. You know, Uncle Max and the boys and the men went out to Barranguba, Montague Island, to sing up the whales, and they sing 300 whales in one day. So singing up song and singing up culture is very important to everybody to understand that we're an old culture. We've been here for thousands and thousands of years, and many generations have walked upon the land before we did. And we have to walk in the same way today, because if we're not walking in harmony, we're walking in chaos. And chaos plays a little part of the whale dreaming, where the regurgitation of the whale beaching itself and everything else, that's the chaos. And our aim is to sing to those whales to not beach themselves, but to stay out in the land, in their part of the world, in the ocean, because it's a big world that we live in, and we need to share as much of our Aboriginality as we can. Now, when I was 11, my father was 30 39. My grandfather was 69, and my great-grandfather lived to the age of 118 years of age. And he spoke in 7 tongues, and he used to tell us all the time, Gatang, don't speak your tongue when you leave the mission, because somebody might take you away. So we was isolated in what we could say to one another in Aboriginal language, but we did say it in privacy. We kept it alive. And with this centre we're sitting in now, it's a rebirth. It's a rebirth of culture. It's a rebirth of spirituality. It's a rebirth of young people wanting to know where they are and who they come from. And Back to Country is backcountry.org.au limited. So I'll read that out again, backcountry.org.au limited. And if anybody wants to go on there and have a bit of a look at what we're talking about and the purpose of us being traditional lawmen, it's hard sometimes to be who you are, but you have to carry on and present yourself in the best way, Miriam. Serenity.